Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack the fascinating blueprint used to organize the incredible, mind-boggling diversity of the animal kingdom. I mean, if you've ever looked at a sea sponge, a spider, and a starfish and wondered how on earth they all fit together in the grand scheme of biology, well, you're absolutely in the right place.
So let's dive right into this massive biological problem. How exactly do you organize over 1 million different animals? How do you even begin to sort and make sense of such an overwhelming variety of life, ranging from tiny microscopic worms all the way up to massive giant squids?
The scale of the issue is truly staggering. With literally over 1 million animal species described so far, biology without some kind of master cataloging system would just be pure chaos. Biologists desperately needed a systematic way to assign a proper, logical position to every single newly discovered creature, just so we could figure out its evolutionary relationship to the rest of the living world. To wrap our heads around this, we're going to break today's explainer down into 6 logical sections. 1. Sorting 1 million species. 2. The biologist's sorting toolkit. 3. The simplest animals, which are sponges and cnidarians. 4. The world of worms. 5. The heavyweights, arthropods and mollusks. And finally 6. Spiny-bodied echinoderms. All right, let's get into part 1. Sorting 1 million species, the master roadmap. Take a look at this flowchart. It's basically our master map for the kingdom Animalia. Notice how it's organized based on fundamental cellular and body arrangements? It starts way over on the left with the basic level of organization, moves to symmetry, then looks at the type of body cavity, and finally branches out into the specific phyla on the right. We're going to use this exact map as our anchor today as we navigate the tree of life. Moving on to part 2, the biologist's sorting toolkit, the rules of organization. So when we're sorting these creatures, a crucial clue is symmetry, basically how an animal's body is physically balanced. We distinguish between organisms with zero symmetry, like sponges, which are completely asymmetrical, those that are identical around a central axis, like coelentrates showing radial symmetry, and finally, those with distinct left and right halves, like arthropods, which have bilateral symmetry. This simple physical balance tells us a huge amount about an animal's evolutionary level. Now, zooming in a bit closer, right down to the embryonic cellular level, organisms are sorted by their germ layers. Simpler animals are diploblastic, meaning they have just 2 cell layers, the outer ectoderm and the inner endoderm. But more complex animals unlock a third, middle layer called the mesoderm, making them triploblastic. And that third layer, it's the vital secret ingredient for developing complex structures like muscles and a real circulatory system. Another fascinating structural leap is the column. The column is simply the mesoderm-lined body cavity sitting between the outer body wall and the inner gut wall. Whether an animal has a true column, no column at all, or kind of a false pseudocolumn is a major dividing line in figuring out just how biologically complex they are. And the last big tool in our sorting kit is the notochord. It's essentially a rod-like structure formed on the back or dorsal side of an embryo, kind of like where your own spine sits. This single structural rod literally separates the chordates, which eventually includes animals with backbones, from the non-chordates, which make up the vast majority of the invertebrates we're looking at today. Okay, part 3, simplest animals, sponges and cnidarians. Let's kick things off with the absolute pioneers of the animal kingdom, the sponges, or phylum Porifera. They're stuck at a very loose cellular level of organization, meaning they don't even have true tissues. Instead, they act like living water filters. Water flows right in through tiny pores called ostia, goes into a central cavity called the spongicoel, and shoots out through the osculum. It's a completely unique internal water transport system that handles all of their food gathering and breathing. Stepping it up just the notch in complexity, we meet the stinging cnidarians. These guys unlock tissue-level organization and show up in 2 totally distinct body forms. First, you've got the cylindrical polyp form, which is anchored firmly in place, like a sea anemone. Second, there's the free-swimming, umbrella-shaped medusa form, like your classic jellyfish. What's wild is that some of these animals actually alternate between these 2 forms during their life cycle. Next up, section 4, the world of worms. Escalating complexity. I love looking at this table because you can think of this progression literally like an evolutionary video game, where organisms level up stage by stage. We graduate from the flatworms, which completely lack a coloma, to the roundworms, which have a sort of false body cavity or pseudocolome. Finally, we reach the annelids, like earthworms, which are true colomates with distinctly segmented bodies. You're watching the biological upgrades happen right across these three phyla. And speaking of those segmented annelids, they introduce a massive physiological upgrade we absolutely have to talk about. Lower animals rely on an open circulatory system where internal cells are basically just bathing directly in a soup of blood. But annelids? They introduce the closed circulatory system. Blood is efficiently pumped through specific vessels, arteries, veins, capillaries. It's just a huge leap forward in biological engineering.
All right, moving into Section 5, arthropods and mollusks, the heavyweights. Just let this staggering statistic sink in for a second. Over 66%, we are talking more than 2/3 of all named species on Earth, belong to one single group, phylum Arthropoda. That leaves just 34% for literally every other named species combined. This massive phylum covers everything from economically crucial honeybees all the way to disease vectors like mosquitoes. So how exactly did they achieve this total global dominance? Well, they unlocked a few incredibly successful traits. First, a rigid, chitinous exoskeleton that gives them armor and support. Second, highly adaptable jointed appendages. And third, a highly efficient segmented body, usually broken down into a head, thorax, and abdomen. This armored, jointed blueprint is so incredibly flawless for survival that when you think about it, a crab is essentially just a wet cousin of a spider.
Coming in at number 2, right behind the arthropods, are the mollusks. Think snails, octopuses, and pearl oysters. These are soft-bodied creatures that solve the whole not getting eaten problem a bit differently. They developed a soft mantle that drapes over their internal organs. And to protect those soft bodies, they often secrete a hard calcareous shell. They also sport a distinct head and a really specialized muscular foot used for getting around.
Finally, Section 6, spiny-bodied echinoderms, the climax of invertebrates. Honestly, echinoderms seem downright alien compared to almost everything else we've looked at. Their name literally means spiny-bodied, thanks to an internal skeleton made of calcium-rich bony plates. But their absolute coolest trick is a totally unique water vascular system that they use to move, catch food, and even breathe. Plus, they have this bizarre life cycle where they start out as bilaterally symmetrical larvae and transform into radially symmetrical adults. Just look at this classic starfish. It's the perfect visual summary of that radial symmetry and spiny-bodied adaptation. It represents a truly fascinating evolutionary path, utilizing that bizarre water vascular system to slowly creep across the ocean floor.
So, we've successfully mapped out this incredibly diverse, complex world of invertebrates today, going from the simple, porous sponges all the way to heavily armored arthropods and the spiny starfish. But honestly, it leaves us with one massive, lingering question. What about us? What about the chordates, that specific branch of the tree of life defined by the notochord? Well, that is a brilliantly complex story for another explainer. Keep wondering, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.